Mr. Chairman, I move that the Board of Supervisors come out of closed session and reconvene in open session.
Could I ask the audience, please, to quiet down? Thank you.
I'll repeat my motion. I move that the Board of Supervisors come out of closed session and reconvene in open session.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor DeHaven. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
Mr. Chairman, I move that to the best of each board member's knowledge, the board discussed only matters involving the acquisition, disposition of real property, and legal matters, specifically discussion and/or consideration on the acquisition of real property for public purpose and of the disposition of publicly held real estate, where discussions in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body, and for consultation with legal counsel and or briefing by staff pertaining to litigation matter Barber versus County of Frederick, Virginia, currently pending in the United States District Court for the Western District of Virginia, where consultation or briefing in an open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigation posture of the county pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A, 3 and 11.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Fisher. Any discussion? Hearing none. Supervisor Hess?
Aye.
Supervisor Collins?
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor Ewing?
Aye.
Supervisor DeHaven?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Chairman votes aye. Motion passes unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Board of Supervisors approve settlement of the case of Barber versus Frederick County of Frederick, currently pending in the United States District Court for the Western District of Virginia, and authorize the county attorney and retain counsel to prepare appropriate settlement documents consistent with the payments of $115,460.73 to the plaintiffs and their counsel, plus appropriate taxes, and authorize the county administrator to execute such documents.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Collins. Discussion. Hearing none. Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor DeHaven?
Aye.
Supervisor Ewing? Supervisor Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor Collins?
Aye.
Supervisor Hess?
Aye.
Chairman votes aye, and the motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Board of Supervisors appropriate the sum of $135,062.23 to pay sums due according to the agreement to settle the case of Barber versus County of Frederick, currently pending in the United States District Court for the Western District of Virginia, to pay corresponding sums to those sheriff's deputies who previously entered into releases of claims under the gap pay statute, and to pay all applicable taxes on such payments.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Lofton. Discussion. Hearing none. Supervisor Hess?
Aye.
Supervisor Collins?
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor Ewing?
Aye.
Supervisor DeHaven?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Chairman votes aye, and the motion passes. We'll now go into regular session since the bewitching hour 7 o'clock has arrived. For Mr. Hess, are you here? Don't believe he is. Supervisor Fisher, would you lead us in an invocation?
Let us pray. Dear Lord and Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and for our many blessings, and thank you for this community in which we live. We'd ask you to be with all the members of our armed services, wherever they might be serving, to protect our freedoms. We ask for your guidance and direction in our business this evening for the citizens of Frederick County. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Vice Chairman Ewing, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please stand and face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Adoption of the agenda. Mr. Rowley, any additions or deletions?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion made by Supervisor Hess. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Collins. Discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The agenda is adopted. Consent agenda, Mr. Rowley, no items.
No items, Mr. Chairman.
Citizen comments. Are there any citizens who signed up to address the board of agenda items that are not subject to public hearing?
I have one citizen, Jay March, to speak on the budget work session minutes.
If you'd come forward, please repeat your name, magisterial district, and limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
Good evening. I'm Jay March from the Gainesboro District. Chairman Schickel, members of the board, Administrator Riley. I was able to attend most of the budget work session that was held back on February 27th, the minutes of which you're going to approve tonight. Administrator Riley presented a very well-documented proposal of revenues and expenditures anticipated for 2014. Two items that caught my attention were the anticipated increases in health insurance costs and the merit pay salary increases for the county employees. The budget scenarios presented to address these items both included budget increases. I would like to remind you that these same two items, increased health insurance costs and the lack of salary increases, are affecting taxpayers in Frederick County. With the large surplus that we had last year and the anticipated surplus that we're looking at for the next year, I would hope that you would assist the taxpayers and alleviate some of this burden. I would remind you that numerous citizen petitions have been provided to the board members on this fact. To return our property tax rates back to the 0.545 rate where it was before the large surpluses that we had that came into the county coffers. All of us continue to struggle in this economy. We need a balanced approach. I would hope that you would attempt to not only help the county employees, but do not forget the taxpayer as this next budget is approaching. Thank you for allowing me to address the board.
No one else, Mr. Riley?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Are there any Board of Supervisors comments? Hearing none, we'll move on to the minutes. Revenue Recovery Fee-for-Service Work Session, February 27, 2013.
Move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion by Supervisor Ewing to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Collins. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The minutes of the work session on February 27, 2013 are approved. Next is the budget work session, February 27, 2013.
Mr. Chairman, move they be approved.
We have a motion by Supervisor Hess. Is there a second by Supervisor DeHaven, I believe? Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Budget work session minutes of February 27, 2013 are approved. And next is the regular meeting on February 27, 2013.
Move for approval, Mr.
We
Chairman.
have a motion by Supervisor Fisher to approve and a second by Supervisor Lofton. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Minutes of the regular meeting, February 27, 2013 are approved. Next is our committee appointments, and I forgot to fire up my machine. All right, first is the Extension Leadership Council in Redbud. Are we ready?
Mr. Chairman, I have a individual who says he will serve. We were just late getting him his application. I'll probably be ready by next meeting.
Parks and Recreation, Gainesboro.
No recommendations at this point.
Planning Commission, Redbud.
I'm interviewing someone hopefully this weekend who's interested, but not yet, Your Honor.
All right, Historic Resources Advisory Board, I have not heard of one. We haven't heard anything, Mr. Riley, have we?
No, sir.
Okay, we're still looking. Social Services Board, Member at Large, you have an application before you. What is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that the appointment of Linda Martinson to the Social Services Board be approved.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor DeHaven. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Linda Martinson is appointed to the Social Services Board. Next is the Russell 150 Community Development Authority. Mr. Riley and I believe, are close to bringing you a candidate, but I don't believe we're quite ready.
Correct.
Planning Commission, O'Pekin.
Mr. Chairman, I have spoken with Mr. Madigan. He's willing to serve another term, so I'd like to make a motion we reappoint Mr. Madigan to serve.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Collins. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Brian Madigan is reappointed to the Planning Commission. Next is Shawnee District.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Ambrosi is willing to serve again, so I would move that Mr. Ambrosi be reappointed to the Planning Commission.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Lofton. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Lawrence R. Ambergi is reappointed to the Planning Commission from Shawnee. Next is Historic Resources Advisory Board, Opequon.
Mr. Chairman, I've spoken with Mrs. Fravel. She's willing to serve another term, so I'd make a motion we reappoint Mrs. Fravel.
Mr. Chairman, I second the motion.
We have a motion by Supervisor Ewing, a second by Supervisor Hess. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Elizabeth B. Fravel is reappointed to the Historic Resources Advisory Board. Mr. Riley, we got that on there twice.
Do we?
Yeah. I guess the at-large one was the one we've already passed by, and then this was the Opequon
Right,
page one.
right.
Okay. Sanitation Authority, Redbud.
I have not heard back from Mr. Cunningham yet.
I don't believe that we ended up with these being magisterial appointments. It just happens to be where he lives. So I appreciate you doing, but they're all at large, I believe, because there's not one for each magisterial district anymore. So I appreciate you checking with him. That's it for committee appointments. We'll move on to the Joint Finance Committee report. I believe Mr. Riley's going to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Joint Finance Committee met on February the 27th, 8 a.m. All members were present. For board action, we need memorandums of understanding for approval for the Joint Judicial Center and the Convention and Visitors Bureau, also known as the Tourism Board. There was a correction on the Tourism Board funding that it is $100,500 per locality. The committee reviewed same, and it is appropriate to motion for approval.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move for approval.
We have a motion by Supervisor Ewing, and do we have a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor DeHaven. Mr. Riley, I thought we were actually not going to have the museum one anymore rather than a modification.
We need to do away with the memorandum of understanding, so that'll be your next action.
So you're on the first one first, the Joint Judicial Center and EDC.
The EDC is not in this.
It's just a recognition of the Winchester EDA and the EDA director. That's the modification to it.
No, sir. I don't believe that the city was ready to move forward on that memorandum of understanding.
Bear with me, I will get with you in a minute. We're Joint Judicial Center only.
And the Convention and Visitors Bureau, also known as the Tourism Board.
Is everyone already straight before I had to get there? The motion is to approve those two memorandums of understanding. And we have a second. Everyone clear? All's in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Those two joint memorandums of understanding are approved. Now continue, Mr. Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The last memorandum of understanding is to terminate the joint funding relationship as it relates to the funding allocation for the old Frederick County Courthouse Civil War Museum, George Washington's headquarters, Stonewall Jackson's headquarters, and Abrams Delight. The motion would be to terminate those MOUs.
Do we have that motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that we terminate those.
We have a motion by Supervisor Ewing. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Lofton. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The memorandum of understanding is terminated.
All of the other information, Mr. Chairman, is for information only. And that concludes the report.
Okay, we'll move on to public hearings. The first one is a 12-month outdoor festival permit request of Grove Winchester Harley-Davidson. Mr. Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As stated, this is a 12-month outdoor festival permit request of Groves Winchester Harley-Davidson. This is pursuant to the Frederick County Code, Chapter 86 Festivals, Section 86-3 permit required. This is a 12-month permit. All events are to be held on the grounds of Winchester Harley-Davidson, 140 Independence Drive, Winchester, Virginia. The property is owned by Jubilee LLC.
Questions of Mr. Riley? All All right, hearing none, we'll convene the public hearing. This is a public hearing to consider a 12-month outdoor festival permit request of Groves Winchester Harley-Davidson pursuant to Frederick County Code, Chapter 86 Festivals, Section 86.3, permit required, application, issuance or denial, fee, paragraph D, 12-month permits, all events to be held on the grounds of the Winchester Harley-Davidson, 140 Independence Drive, Winchester, Virginia, property owned by Jubilee LLC. Is there anyone here who would like to speak either for or against this festival permit? I'm sorry, I didn't ask the applicant if they wanted to speak to the issue.
No, sir, I mean,
Okay. All right, seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, a lot of these events are for charities, very worthwhile causes, and I've never had any response from anyone that said that they've caused any disruption. So I would move to approve the application for the 12-month outdoor festival permit.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor DeHaven. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, this is in my district, and all information I ever receive is these events are well-run and very well done, so I think this is a very good asset to our community.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. Supervisor Lofton.
Aye.
Supervisor DeHaven.
Aye.
Supervisor Ewing.
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher.
Aye.
Supervisor Collins.
Aye.
Supervisor Hess.
Aye.
Chairman votes aye, and the motion passes. The 12-month outdoor festival permit request of Grove Winchester Harley-Davidson is approved. Next is an outdoor festival permit request of Cindy Fanistock Schaefer and Wayne Schaefer, Hogging Up Barbecue Festival. Mr. Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As stated, this is an outdoor festival permit request of Cindy Fanistock Schaefer and Wayne Schaefer, Hogging Up Barbecue Festival, and this is pursuant to the Frederick County Code, Chapter 86 Festivals, Section 86-3, permit required. This is an outdoor festival permit that will be held Friday through Sunday, June 28 through 30, 2013, from 4 p.m. to 11 p.m. on Friday, June 28th, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. on Saturday, June 29th, and 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Sunday, June 30, 2013, on the grounds of the Frederick County Fairgrounds, 167 Fairground Road, Route 11 North, Clearbrook, Virginia. The property is owned by the Frederick County Fair.
Questions of Mr. Riley? Is there an applicant here who wishes to speak?
I believe the applicant is present.
Would you come forward, or did you wish to speak?
We're here to answer any questions.
You want to come up and see if there are any? Are there any questions for the applicant? Hope I didn't make you walk up here for nothing.
That's okay.
Any questions? Looks like I did. Thank you, sir. All right, we'll now conduct a public hearing. This is a public hearing to consider outdoor festival permit, request of Cindy Fanistock Schaefer and Wayne Schaefer, Hogging Up Barbecue Festival pursuant to the Frederick County Code, Chapter 86, Festivals, Section 86.3, permit required. Application is issued or denied. Fee for an outdoor festival permit. Festival will be held Friday through Sunday, June 28th to 30th, 2013, from 4 o'clock p.m. to 11 p.m. on Friday, June 28th, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. on Saturday, June 29th, and 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Sunday, June 30th, 2013, on the grounds of the Frederick County Fairgrounds, 167 Fairground Road, Route 11 North, Clearbrook, Virginia, property owned by the Frederick County Fair. Is there anyone here who would like to speak either for or against this outdoor festival permit? Seeing no one, will close the public hearing. Stonewall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'd move for approval contingent upon them accomplishing all the federal, state, and local requirements, some of which we're still working on in code and ordinance.
All right, we have a motion to approve with some caveats of compliance with federal, state, and local law. Is there a second?
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Hess. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize. I did have a question on that one. I was trying to find it. Yes, of the applicant?
Back up, sir. Thanks, sir.
Have you secured someone for the alcoholic beverage sales? I noticed in here you said you had not at that time the permit was issued. Have you?
The Winchester Exchange Club is going to handle all the beer sales.
Okay, so they have all the permits, everything necessary?
Yeah, I think we have a contract with them. I think they're going to send their permit in like a month ahead of the festival.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Are there any other questions or discussion? All right, hearing none. Supervisor Hess.
Aye.
Supervisor Collins.
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher.
Aye.
Supervisor Ewing.
Aye.
Supervisor Haven.
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton.
Aye.
Chair votes aye and the motion passes. The outdoor festival permit request is approved. Next, the board will conduct a public hearing on the declaration of surplus and disposal of an interest in real property located at 317 South Cameron Street, Winchester, Virginia. Mr. Riley?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a declaration of surplus and proposed sales agreement with the Winchester Economic Development Authority. The County of Frederick, Virginia is currently vested with a 50% undivided interest in that certain lot and parcel of land lying and being situate on the west side of South Cameron Street at its intersection with East Cecil Street, the city of Winchester, Virginia, improved by a building design designated as 317 South Cameron Street. We have entered into a proposed agreement, and the Winchester Economic Development Authority is proposing to purchase our interest in the building at a price of $218,087. As the board will remember, this has been the site of the ASAP, Division of ASAP offices, Frederick County, Winchester Detox Facility, and it is proposed at this point that our interest be sold to the Winchester Economic Development Authority, and I would be more than happy to answer any questions.
Questions of Mr. Riley? All right, hearing none, we'll conduct the public hearing. The public hearing is on the declaration of surplus and disposal of interest in real property located at 317 South Cameron Street, Winchester, Virginia, identified as City of Winchester Property Identification Number 193-1-K-14. Purpose of the hearing is to receive public comments on the declaration of property as surplus and approval of the sale of the property to the Economic Development Authority of the City of Winchester per the terms of the purchase and sales agreement dated February 13, 2013. Is there anyone here who would like to speak either for or against this declaration and sale? All right, seeing no one, close the public hearing. This is the board's discretion, no magisterial district involved.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the purchase for the contracted price.
Motion by Supervisor Collins to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Ewing. Discussion. Hearing none. Supervisor Lofton.
Aye.
Supervisor DeHaven.
Aye.
Supervisor Ewing.
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher.
Aye.
Supervisor Collins.
Aye.
Supervisor Hess.
Aye.
Chair votes aye and the motion passes. Next is a public hearing as the Board of Supervisors solicits public input on the proposed community development block grant proposal to be, did I skip one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, back up. Conduct a public hearing on exchange of interest of the Shawnee Land Sanitary District in real property identified as tax parcels 49B03-124-6, 49B03-124-7, 49B3-124-8, 49B03-124-9, and 49B03-124-10. Mr. Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to defer to Mr. Williams.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this is a rather simple exchange. It's 5 lots for 5 lots, and the purpose for it comes from the Public Works Department and the Sanitary District. The 5 lots that are owned by CHW Partnership currently are in, I think, what would be characterized as a rather inaccessible or more difficult to access portion of the Shawnee Land subdivision. And if the owner of those lots were to seek to develop them, it would require the sanitary district to build a road to access them. As the board likely knows, the sanitary district owns a number of lots within the subdivision for a variety of reasons. It has 5 contiguous that are on or directly proximate to an existing road. Thus, the basis for the exchange is that if the sanitary district trades the 5 lots it owns that are on a road for the 5 lots this partnership owns that are not, the sanitary district saves tremendous resources in not having to build a road to those lots. The district has engaged in trades such as this in the past, and they're of the sense it makes sense for them, obviously. As far as outstanding tax obligations, it's my understanding that the regular real estate taxes have been paid or will be paid. We'll obviously make sure that they are before the deeds are executed and recorded. And as to any sanitary district fees outstanding, that will be an issue for the sanitary district to deal with. And depending upon the exact status of it, they may need to come back and seek a waiver of outstanding fees. But for purposes of the transaction, there appears to be no reason it's not prepared to go forward as presented.
Questions of the county's attorney? Hearing none, we'll open the public hearing on the exchange of the interest of the Shawnee Sanitary District in real property identified as tax parcels numbers 49B03-1246, 49B03-1247, 49B03-124-8, 49B03-1249, and 49B03-2410, all located in the Shawnee Land subdivision with CHW Partnership of Virginia Partnership for real property identified as tax parcels 49B03-123-265, 49B03-123-266, 49B03-123-282, 49B03-123-283, and 49B03-123-284, all located in the Shawnee Land subdivision. The purpose of the public hearing is to receive public comment on the proposed exchange of the indicated real property. Is there anyone here who would like to speak either for or against this exchange? All right, seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing. This is Back Creek.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, I would move for approval of the exchange of the interest of the Shawnee Land Sanitary District real property as identified in your comments.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Fisher. Discussion. Hearing none. Supervisor Lofton.
Aye.
Supervisor DeHaven.
Aye.
Supervisor Ewing.
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher.
Aye.
Supervisor Collins.
Aye.
Supervisor Hess.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and the exchange is approved. Next is the Board of Supervisors' public hearing to solicit public input on the proposed community development block grant proposal. Mr. Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Putting the in first, after the public hearing, it will be requested of the board to consider an official approval to submit the funding request for $700,000 to support this project and have our community development block grant application considered for the Laurel Center. The Laurel Center's domestic violence shelter, the Laurel Center, also known as TLC, is an IRS 501c3 approved nonprofit organization providing comprehensive services to the victims of domestic and/or sexual violence and their children. TLC is in the process of constructing a new emergency domestic and sexual violence shelter and outreach center that meets a wide variety of needs to physically endangered women and children, many of whom are homeless. This activity contributes to TLC's mission of empowering victims of domestic and sexual violence by providing emergency housing, advocacy, job training, support services, and education. TLC serves residents of Frederick County, the city of Winchester, and Clark County. Frederick County local government is submitting on behalf of TLC a grant application to the Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development for $700,000 in federal community development block grant funding to support construction of the new facility. Below are some of the key facts about the project. The demand for domestic violence and sexual assault victim services has increased significantly. Construction of a new facility is needed given the overwhelming demand for TLC services. Last year, over 200 endangered women and children were turned away due to the lack of space. A new facility is needed because the current facility is old and in dilapidated condition and cannot keep up with the current demand for TLC programs and services. The new TLC facility site is located within a low to moderate income area and will serve all persons in need of domestic sexual violence support services. The facility will provide expanded living quarters, kitchen, and living space, as well as an office space for operation of TLC support programs and services. It will contain approximately 20,000 square feet, including 8 bedrooms with 7,000 total square feet of living space, with the option of an additional 7,000 square feet of living space for more bedrooms based on future demand. The new facility doubles TLC's current emergency shelter capacity. TLC expects to shelter over 400 persons annually. The new facility contains sufficient space for TLC's 18 programs, providing assistance to over 2,000 persons annually. TLC is the only place in the area where women can go for these services. There is no other place that offers such services in the service area. This is a request for funding provided to Virginia by the federal CDBG program, not local tax dollars. It will not impact the taxes of Frederick County residents. The county sees this project as a very cost-effective solution to a major community problem, helping victims of domestic and sexual violence. The project has raised private funding directly from the community, more than $2 million of the $4.3 million project cost. Several key community leaders support this project, as well as congressional leaders such as Congressman Frank Wolf. That concludes my presentation, Mr. Chairman.
The topic has been introduced. I do have a spouse who serves on this board, so I'm going to refrain from discussion and voting on the matter and turn it over to Vice Chairman Ewing.
The county administrator has presented his comments. Does any of the board members have any questions of the county administrator? If not, this is a public hearing to solicit public input on the proposed Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, proposal to be submitted to the Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development for the Laurel Center relocation project. Residents of the project area are encouraged to attend. The Laurel Center proposal will include a request for funding to complete construction of Phase 2 for relocating the new facility. The draft CDBG proposal will be presented for comment along with information on projected beneficiaries, including the number of low and moderate income residents to benefit from the proposed project, and plans to minimize displacement if it should occur. Citizens will also be given the opportunity to comment on Frederick County's past use of CDBG funds. A fact sheet on the proposed project and the draft proposal is available at the Northern Shenandoah Valley Regional Commission, 400 East Kendrick Lane, Front Royal, Virginia, 22630. For additional information, contact Martha Schickel, Executive Director. Is there anyone here that would like to speak to address this topic? Yes, sir. Come forward, state your name. And you have 3 minutes, please.
Good evening. My name is Matthew Karen. I'm the board president of the Laurel Center and a Frederick County resident. We're all here tonight to support the funding for the CBDG grant application. As you're aware, we're in the midst of construction for the new building to house the Laurel Center, and unfortunately, you'll be hearing exactly what you just read, including emergency shelter and outreach programs. The Laurel Center supports the counties of Frederick, Clark, and the Winchester City with its need to curb and extinguish domestic and sexual violence. This demand has skyrocketed over the years, especially with the downturn in our economy. Our current facility is old and in disrepair. We have to turn away many victims as we care for, as many as we care for, approximately over 200 a year. As you know, the majority of our population lives in Frederick County, and therefore it's easy to surmise that the Laurel Center would service this population. We've currently raised over $2 million and have begun construction of our new facility, but we still need more help. We are not We're not requesting taxpayer dollars for this project, as the CBDG grant is a state-granted program. Your support can help us secure up to $700,000, which would go a long way to assist the Laurel Center's new facility into becoming a reality. If the state funds for this project, the state's funds this project, the county residents, their taxes will not go up. Many key community leaders support this project, as is Congressman Frank Wolf. By collecting donations in excess of $2 million, there's obviously significant support in our community for this project. Our new facility is being built in downtown Winchester, and this makes significant contribution to the revitalization efforts, as well as bringing jobs and businesses to the community. Even though we are located in the city, as outlined above, our services clearly support Frederick County. We liken the facility to the Frederick County government offices that are located within the city. However, they clearly support Frederick County. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wish to speak? Please come forward. Name and restrict your comments to 3 minutes, please.
Thank you, members of the board, for this opportunity. My name is Cindy Heathcote. I am a forensic nurse examiner at Winchester Medical Center. And I just want to offer, I'm not a member of the board of the Laurel Center. I just want to offer another side of this. I see the victims that they participate and they care for. And nobody plans on being a victim of a crime, especially that rape, sexual assault, or domestic violence. And oftentimes, these women and their children are not able to go back to their homes. I just want to let you know that the work that's being done at the Laurel Center is extremely important to this community. And I don't know of a group that works harder or deserves this grant any more than they do. I also want to let you know that the work that they do, that they provide to these women and their children is free and confidential. And we don't often hear that word in today's world, that it's free. And they do a fabulous job. They're available to us 24/7. They get up, leave their families in the middle of the night to come in and assist us with victims of these horrible crimes. So I just want to let you know that the Forensic Nurse Group, also, I want to extend Mr. Mark Merrill's apologies. He was not able to be here tonight. He had a conflict in his schedule that he was unable to change. But he would certainly like to be here, and I do have his permission to share with you that Winchester Medical Center, Valley Health, and Mr. Merrill are as passionate and grateful as I am for this group and the work that they do. Also, the numbers are tremendous. I know that, we like to think that, we live here in Winchester and we live in Frederick County, but we are not immune to victims, to these horrible crimes. They are occurring, and they are occurring frequently. I can attest to that. So I just want to let you know that there are a lot of people that support the Laurel Center, and they are a very deserving group. The other deserving group are the victims of the crimes. They don't have places to go a lot of times when we finish seeing them. So I thank you for considering this.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Jack Potter. I'm the Director of Emergency Services for Valley Health and the Emergency Department at Winchester Medical Center. I would like to support the comments of Ms. Heathcote here. I come here as an interested third party as well. We see many of these victims on the initial phase of their encounter. It's always very unfortunate. And I would like to say that without reiterating all the great things that have been said, we see that the Laurel Center has already been a success story. What it's offered our community recently has been a huge augmentation in what's been available to these victims. The emergency department is the front end, used to be the back end of a lot of these visits. These women had nowhere to go. This has been a tremendous asset to our community, and the future growth of this program is really something we should be proud of. And so as a citizen of our community, looking at my neighbors and their access to times of need, a center like this, I think it's really it's an opportunity. And this grant offers something to really facilitate improving this level of service. And I think that we should unanimously support this because there are very few opportunities to get this kind of support to our community to augment what's clearly been supported by our community and all the volunteer money that's come forward. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Chairman Schickel and the Commissioners. I want to thank you for this opportunity to speak.
State your name, please.
My name is Evan Clark. I'm the Director of Intervention Services of Virginia. I work on the other side of the fence. I provide counseling and services for perpetrators of domestic violence. The bad news I have to share with you is my business has not dropped off. So there are plenty of victims on the other side since I work with the perpetrators. I have to tell you that 85% of my clients come from Frederick County. So we're definitely helping people in Frederick County when we support victims of sexual and domestic violence. So I would like to strongly encourage you to support this CDBG grant. And again, this does not impact the taxpayers of Frederick County. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Anyone else like to address the board? If not, whoops. Sheriff, I almost cut you off.
I wanted to give all the good people a chance to speak first. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Sheriff Bob Williamson, Frederick County. I too would like to offer my support for the Laurel Center. I have the pleasure of serving as your sheriff, but in addition to that, I've served in law enforcement in Frederick County when we did not have the Laurel Center. I can tell you that one of the most prevalent calls we have for service is domestic violence. As stated momentarily ago, their numbers are going up, not going down. So I would like to support this program and anything we can do to help them. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Have I overlooked anyone else? Ms. Schickel?
Thank you. Members of the board, just quickly, my name is Martha Schickel, and I'm the point of contact for this project and the grant application. If I could just ask the people in the audience that are here in support of the project to stand so that you know who hasn't spoken. We just wanted to get that on the record so that we can submit that magnitude of interest in coming to a public meeting in the application. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? If not, we'll close the public hearing. Any questions by the board members, comments? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we support the application, the grant application.
Do we have a second?
Mr. Chairman, I second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Supervisor DeHaven, a second by Supervisor Fisher. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Vice Chair votes aye. Motion carries. I turn the meeting back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Ewing. Our next item is a Planning Commission public hearing. Conditional use permit 01-13 of Judy Tingle. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. As you guys may remember, this application was brought to you about 2 years ago and ultimately was approved by you guys January 26, 2011. To refresh your memory, this property is located on the north side of the county in the Clearbrook area. It is in Heights Run subdivision and has direct access off of Tyler Drive. It is in the Stonewall Magisterial District. It is identified as 32A-2-18. Here's kind of a schematic of what the property looks like. 3 bullet points that I want to point out to you. The Department of Social Services granted approval to allow Mrs. Tingle to increase the capacity to the maximum of 12 children. As you may recall, the previous application allowed 8 children. Social Services has now granted approval for 12 children. Bullet point number 2, the Health Department has no objections to this revision. And the last bullet point, to date, staff has not received any complaints in regards to the in-home daycare. Should the board find this appropriate, Planning Commission recommended to revise condition number 5. As you can see, other than those children residing on the property, there shall be no more than 8 / out, should be 12 being cared for at any given time. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and Ms. Judy Tingle is here on behalf of the application.
Questions of staff? Did the applicant wish to speak?
Looks like no. Chairman, she said no.
Thanks, sir. All right, we'll now conduct a public hearing to consider conditional use permit 01-13 for Judy Tingle for revision to the requirements under conditional use permit 09-10, enabling an in-home family daycare facility. The request is for the purpose of increasing the number of children being cared for at any given time. Property is located at 284 Tyler Drive and is identified with property identification number 32A-2-18 in the Stonewall Magisterial District. Is there anyone here who would like to speak either for or against this conditional use permit? All right, seeing no one, close the public hearing. This is Stonewall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd move for approval of CUP number 01-13.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Ewing. Discussion. Hearing none. Supervisor Hess.
Aye.
Supervisor Collins.
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher.
Aye.
Supervisor Ewing.
Aye.
Supervisor DeHaven.
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton.
Aye.
Chairman votes aye, and the conditional use permit 01-13 is approved. Next is another planning commission public hearing on an ordinance amendment, Chapter 165 zoning, Article 4 agricultural residential districts. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is an amendment to remove a waiver opportunity currently contained in the RA Rural Area Zoning District that allows the board to reduce setbacks for an existing lot of record when an undue hardship exists. Now note the purpose behind this waiver being eliminated is that these types of setback waivers should be handled by the Board of Zoning Appeals. So this was discussed by the DRC last year, the Planning Commission back in December, and then the board discussed this at your January 9th meeting. The Planning Commission held a public hearing for this on February 20th, and they did recommend approval. So tonight we're seeking a decision from the board on this proposed zoning ordinance text amendment. I would be glad to answer any questions.
Questions of staff?
Mr. Chairman, I'm
Supervisor
assuming that the
Lofton.
BZA is aware of this and approves of this.
Yes. That's the board that typically handles setback reductions in the past.
Any other questions of staff? Thank you. Board will now open the public hearing to consider an ordinance amendment, Chapter 165 zoning, Article 4, agricultural and residential districts, Part 401 RA Rural Areas District, removal of the waiver opportunity in the RA district, which allows the Board of Supervisors to reduce setbacks for existing lots. Is there anyone here who would like to speak either for or against this ordinance amendment? Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of the ordinance amendment as submitted.
We have a motion by Supervisor Lofton to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Hess. Discussion. Hearing none. Supervisor Lofton.
Aye.
Supervisor DeHaven. Supervisor Ewing. Supervisor Fisher.
Aye.
Supervisor Collins.
Aye.
Supervisor Hess.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and the ordinance amendment is approved. Next is another Planning Commission public hearing, ordinance amendment, Chapter 165 zoning, Article 8, development plans and approvals. Go ahead.
Again, thank you. This is a proposed amendment for a number of changes to Part 801 of the zoning ordinance to update the master development plan, the MDP requirements. It also revises how master development plans are processed, as well as reorganize a good amount of the text for clarity. So I would note that the Code of Virginia allows localities to require documents that demonstrate compliance with county code, and in Frederick County, a master development plan is utilized for this purpose. Now, master development plans are reviewed and approved through an administrative, not a legislative process. However, these plans are presented to the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors as informational items once they have addressed all of the review agency comments. So master development plans are presented to the Planning Commission and the board at a public meeting for a number of reasons. First, this provides the Planning Commission and the board, as well as adjoining property owners, with an opportunity to see and understand the project prior to the beginning of construction. Second, it shows the implementation of adopted county code, as well as it allows staff to process waiver requests by applicants at the same time that the board is seeing the master plans. So just the history of where this has been. The Planning Commission discussed this in December
And then the Board of Supervisors at your January meeting. The Planning Commission held a public hearing for this at their February 20th meeting, and they did recommend approval. So tonight, we are seeking a decision from the board on these proposed amendments. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Questions for staff? Supervisor Fisher.
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Perkins, under this pre-application conference, I understand where it said, that maybe someone unfamiliar with the master development plan, but would there be some reason staff might, outside developer or something, what would be your reason for a pre-application conference?
Typically, in the past, pre-application conferences have only been requested by the applicants when they want to come in and talk to staff about it. However, staff would be in the position to possibly request a pre-application conference if we knew of a number of issues that existed on a property that we felt an applicant should be aware of.
Okay, thank you.
Sir.
Other questions, staff? I had a sort of a comment. I'll do it now rather than later. I appreciate staff's attention to what I perceive to be a historic position of the board, that it wanted to see what the results of its ordinance adoptions was, rather than have it administratively taken care of and built before you could see what did the ordinances you approved. And when I read it, I saw it abundantly clear in there that there was the effort made to let the board know what was going to happen, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you. I think that's it. We'll now conduct a public hearing. This is an ordinance amendment, Chapter 165 zoning, Article 8, development plans and approvals, Part 801, master development plans, Article 1, general provisions, amendments and conditional use permits, Part 101, general provisions, Article 2, supplementary use regulations, parking buffers and regulations, specific uses, Part 202, off-street parking, loading and access, Article 4, agricultural and residential districts, Part 402, RP, residential performance districts, Art 5, planned development districts, Part 501, R4, residential planned community district, Part 502, R5, residential recreational community district, Part 504, MS medical support district, revision to update the master development plan submission and processing requirements. This revision also modifies a number of master development plan references throughout the Chapter 165 to conform with Section 801 revision. Is there anyone here who would like to speak either for or against this ordinance amendment? If so, please come forward, give your name, magisterial district, limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
I'm Mark Berg from the Back Creek District, and I want to speak against this change. This change basically centralizes power in the local bureaucracy and decreases individual liberty. We've seen this in the federal and state level, and it's rather naive, I believe, to think we wouldn't see it here. The zoning ordinance presently requires the Planning Commission to make a recommendation in the board to approve or deny a master development plan. Master development plans presently are only presented as an informational item, when they in fact should have not been only informational items. Therefore, in order to, quote, bring the zoning ordinance into compliance with current practice, the master development process has been modified to remove the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors approval. Now, it's interesting because when did the zoning ordinance choose to not comply with this? Who's not complying with what? I find the statement there rather arrogant to say that the law isn't complying, when in fact, the board or the Planning Commission, as it were, is not complying with the ordinance. Okay, so what happens here? Well, from the agenda from the Planning Commission on December 5th, 2012, the master development plans are to promote development that suits the land, is harmonious with adjoining property, and is in the best interest of the public. Well, exactly who gets to decide that? It's not, in fact, the board now, because you're going to give up that power. It is not the Planning Commission, but two people. It is the director of the Planning Department and the county administrator. In fact, it says here, the master development plan must receive administrative approval from the director of planning and development and the county administrator. Now, it's interesting, we mentioned the pre-application conference. It wasn't required before, but now it could be required. Notice I say it may be required because it's up to these two people to decide if they want that person to do it, and that person doesn't have to have a pre-application conference. And when is the builder going to know this? When he goes in with his regular application, he's going to be told he needs to have a pre-application conference? Interesting. The following items are now going to be required for master development plans in all zoning districts. This is new. The topography shall be shown at contour intervals acceptable to the director. Now, that couldn't be put in there. It's got to be acceptable to the director, huh? It could be 5 feet intervals this time. Tomorrow it could be 10 feet intervals. I think we need a little more clarity in these ordinances. Now, this is interesting. A history of all land divisions that have occurred in relation to the tract since the adoption of the requirement, and the ownership and use of all adjoining parcels, including parcels across road rights-of-ways. Frankly, this is absolutely ridiculous. The county has that information, and I, as a developer, especially if I'm new and not been in this county, would have to go get this information from the county and then present it back to the county. How ridiculous is that? Now, the following items are required for other master development plans in M1, M2, EM, HEB 1 through 3, OMA, et cetera, et cetera. Acreage of floodplains. Okay, well, there's a very, very lot more. I didn't think I'd get through it, but I would urge you not to vote this. This is an absolutely terrible piece of ordinance, rivals Obamacare, in my opinion. Thanks.
Anyone else?
Good evening. I'm Jay Marsh from the Gainesboro District. I have not intently studied this effort here, but I would think that I understand some of the reasons that the board would like to absolve some of the requirements in this ordinance to the Planning Commission, but I kind of find it funny that we had to bring forward a zoning ordinance to increase a daycare facility from 8 to 12 that you had to approve, but this massive thing that you want to just give it to the Planning Commission and let them do it without having appropriate public facilities, public hearings before the citizens. So I would think that this is probably a little bit of an overreach, and I would agree with Dr. Berg that we should not go forward with this approval of this ordinance tonight. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Dodie Stottlemyre, and I live in the Shawnee Magisterial District. I'd like to speak on the ordinance amendment that's being proposed. While I'm sure this revision is going to be helpful to the amount of time the Board of Supervisors spends in the approval process of the master development plans, I have some genuine concerns as to the content of the ordinance revisions. Having reread this thing a few times, I'm struck by several thoughts. There's numerous requirements being added that would seem to create much more work for the Planning Commission and be onerous for the developer. The overall amount of information and detail required could be overwhelming for a developer to accurately judge, particularly in the early stages of a subdivision development plan. There's no room for an application appeal process or a timeline for a decision of approval by the Director of Planning and Development. There are stipulations in the ordinance amendment that would make the developer produce a new master development plan if substantial changes were to be made to the document. If that were to occur, it is stated in the amendment that the Board of Supervisors may adopt a schedule of fees to be paid to by the applicant to the county for the costs associated with the review of the master development plan. True, that might be a new source of revenue to be tapped. I find it interesting that while the Board of Supervisors can adopt a schedule of fees, they wouldn't be able to approve or deny any part of a master development plan. The ability to do that would be abdicated by this board if this ordinance amendment is approved. They will effectively only be informed of what's decided at the administrative level. I understand the procedures that are on the books already are apparently not being followed at this time, hence the ordinance revision. However, it seems to me that it may be a bit easier to follow procedures already in place than to revise the ordinance. One thing I do know is that once this revision is approved, it's going to be pretty impossible to rescind. It's not certain that future appointees for the two positions that would now determine development, the county administrator and the planning director, will always be acting in the best interests of Frederick County residents. I feel that taking the decisions for the development of Frederick County out of the hands of elected representatives can be a dangerous move. While this decision might take workload off the supervisor's shoulders, it also denies residents the due process that's been the backbone of this country. I've heard many, even in this room, complaining that on the federal, even the state level, much is passed without representation by their elected officials. My position as an American and as a voting resident of Frederick County is that this is the duty of the board to be involved in the determination process from start to finish for any development plans in Frederick County. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else? All right, seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing. What is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move for adoption of the proposed revisions of Master Development Plan review and submission.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Fisher. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman, if I could ask a question, I think the interpretation that we've heard tonight is not the interpretation that I have of this ordinance. If the interpretation is correct by who've spoken here tonight, I would not vote for this. However, my understanding of this is that if a master development plan comes to us and it comports with the code as it currently is written, so the streets are the right width, the sidewalks are done, we are actually removing bureaucratic steps in this approval process. That's my understanding of the code section, and that's the reason I support it.
Any other discussion? Supervisor Lofton.
Mr. Chairman, I concur with Supervisor Collins. It appears that the way it is written, we'd actually asking the developer to put himself in double jeopardy, whereas if he complied with all the codes and then came forth to the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors, we'd be in a position to change that under which he was guided to do this process. So that's why I would support this amendment.
Other discussion? Not sure I exactly understand the timing of the amendment. Mr. Lawrence might be able to help. This is a very old topic. It goes back many years, and current practice has been in place for many years because of legal advice on what had to be done or could be done and when you do it and how you do it. I guess maybe we didn't make the changes we should have made when we did that in the ordinance. I don't know if there's a better excuse or not, but I'm surprised that it comes up now instead of way back then.
If I can comment on that, everything you all have said is accurate. We were given legal advice a number of years ago. The board was not authorized to deny master plans. It would be double jeopardy. Once they get the zoning on the property, then the next step is to follow the ordinances and you get your approvals. So we were advised many moons ago to not ask the board for approval. But we as a community felt, in the working with the board over probably the past 8 years, felt that it was still appropriate to bring the information to you. And so when you've seen master plans for the past 8 years, the motion that you've been giving us is, it looks good, staff can proceed. So you haven't been approving it, you've simply said thank you for the information. So what we finally were able to do now, working with the county attorney, is draft the ordinance to reflect the process that we've been practicing. It certainly, it gets rid of the double jeopardy concern. Once somebody goes through the rezoning process, they have the rights to develop the property per the code. And the master plan is simply illustrating how the code has been applied on this property.
We probably don't have a good excuse why we didn't amend the ordinance a long time ago, right?
We kept, every time we got ready to amend it, another legal issue would come up, and we said, let's not talk about the master plan, let's take care of the legal issues, work things through.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman, it's my understanding that even though we're not reviewing the master plans at the public meeting, they're available to us at any time we want to go in and review them as a...
We will be reviewing them.
Yeah, we will.
will not be approving them.
That's right. We will be reviewing, but we won't be approving. So just want to make it clear that we will be looking at them and scrutinizing them.
Which confused me, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, that was, when I first came on the board, that confused me, as no one explained to me that we had these master plans in front of us and I didn't get to vote on it. It was just for information purposes only, so this clarifies it for me now.
Other discussion? Are we ready to vote? I'll take that as a yes. Supervisor Lofton.
Aye.
Supervisor DeHaven.
Aye.
Supervisor Ewing.
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher.
Aye.
Supervisor Collins.
Aye.
Supervisor Hess.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and the ordinance amendment is approved. Next is a planning item, rezoning application 01-13, Woodside Commercial Center, revised transportation proffers. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Supervisors. This is a very straightforward modification to an old rezoning, the Woodside Commercial Center. It deals specifically with one proffer from the transportation section, and that's proffer 1E. To orientate the board to the property, of course, it's up on Route 11 North, just south of Woodside Road, and backs up to the railroad tracks. This is in the vicinity of Route 11 and Cedar Hill, just north of Clearbrook. The applicant is proffering a $75,000 contribution for road improvements as a replacement to the previously proffered engineering and surveying services in the vicinity of this project. The applicant has provided some information that demonstrates the financial similarity, if you will, in the value of that proffer. One thing that has also been changed is the timing of the proffer implementation, that would be at the occupancy permit rather than when requested by the county. That was part of some discussion that occurred at the Planning Commission. The modified proffer is an acceptable form, and that is, of course, the modified proffer itself. We did not go back and look at the overall proffer statement from the one that occurred back in 2006. The Planning Commission, after their discussion, recommended approval of this minor modification to the transportation section of the Woodside Commercial Center rezoning. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the Board of Supervisors may have. Mr. Gary Oates is here representing the application this evening, should you have any questions of him.
Questions, staff? Applicant? Yeah, I got one. You and I probably both know on the first go-around I was the no vote.
Yes, sir. I remember.
I'm trying to figure out whether I'm worse off than when I voted no the last time or better off, and so I'd like for you to explain that to me.
Well, it's been 7 years since this rezoning was approved, and the county and the state's no closer to deciding how Hopewell and Brucetown are going to line up. One of the, I guess, problems for me with this proffer is it's kind of an unknown what's going to happen when the state and county finally do decide how it's going to be designed. So from my perspective, trying to sell the property would be much simpler if I could just make it a monetary form. And by doing this, I've got quotes on what the costs were, provided those to staff, bumped the price up a little bit to 75 from what the quotes were combined. And also, to me, the county's in a better position because now Mr. Bishop can take that monetary value and get matching funds.
Well, the use, the zoning didn't bother me. The timing of it, because of transportation, was where I got hung up and just couldn't get there. And it does look like a dollar amount versus an unknown is a better approach. But then when in the notes and everything, there's this timing issue, which looks like it might be later. So I'm searching for comfort here to see if this time around I can get there. And you're talking about the right subjects, but as much as you can tell me about why this is a good idea, it would be helpful to me.
Well, as a land surveyor and engineer, the proffer before was whenever the property got started to be under construction or if the county requested for the design. And to me, that was going to be sweat equity. I would do it myself. The reason for the change in timing on this to occupancy permit is, one, I think that was state code now that proffers, cash proffers are given when people come in for building permits or occupancy permits. And the other is, quite frankly, I couldn't pull $75,000 out of my pocket if the county said, all right, we're ready for it tomorrow. There would have to be some project getting started to have the cash available.
So the cash flow doesn't start, but it probably is later than whatever you would have done would have been under the previous proffer.
Probably.
Okay. Honesty is a good thing. Thanks, sir. Anybody else have a question?
I don't have a question, Mr. Chairman, but I do have a concern
I
over
need
the,
to see if I need to let him go.
I don't know whether he wants to respond to my.
Questions for the applicant? Thanks, sir.
I agree with your comments and with our Deputy Director, Transportation Bishop. the timing aspect of it, I have a major concern with. I don't know that I can support it with making, with that timing change.
Well, I wrestle with that, but remember, we've got another thrust out there going on right now where we're encouraging people to do economic development and recognizing that their cash flow hadn't started before we make them put a lot of money on the table. We need to be careful that we have a consistent message in that, and I'm wrestling with that, believe me, so don't overtake my comments.
I think my primary concern is the fact that this is going to be tied in with the Brucetown, Hopewell intersection timing. I think that's where I'm concerned.
Do you have questions?
No.
Okay, anybody else?
Yes, sir.
Any discussion? I'm sorry, Supervisor DeHaven.
Question, but a comment that may help. Don't care to sway anyone's view, but the transportation proffers tend to be, their goal is to try to mitigate the impact of the development. And until the property comes online, they are not generating any additional impact. So there is some equity there. At the point in time when they actually begin to initiate the impact, their proffer is paid over and in cash in this request as opposed to design in the previous one. So it seems equitable to me.
Other discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Lofton.
may I ask a question of staff? I don't see Mr. Bishop here. What is the preferred timing from transportation? Because I hear two sides here, and I can certainly see the reasoning behind that. But as I understand it, the $75,000 could delay finding a solution to the improvements needed at the intersection. So do we have a time frame for that as opposed to what the developer would like to have?
Mr. Bishop shared with the Planning Commission that he's been actively working in that area to provide a solution or find a solution to the Hopewell Brucetown and the interchange with Interstate 81 and Route 11. To that end, he also expressed that having monetary values as soon as possible would be helpful to any implementation out there. Mr. Oates is correct. The occupancy permit is a more recent change at the state code, so that is consistent. As Supervisor DeHaven mentioned, the nexus, the connection between the impact and the development still is there with the receipt of that money at occupancy permit. But clearly, Mr. Bishop was very enthusiastic about receiving any money that was being proposed to be put forward as early as possible in the process.
Other discussion before we get this thing?
Mr. Chairman, if I may follow up on that with Mr. Ruddy, are these dollars, the monetary contribution, are they needed to match any funds that we're looking to get to do this study in that intersection area?
I don't believe there's an application out there presently. Again, Mr. Bishop is trying to pull all of his resources together to proactively get that situation addressed up in that part of the county. So while he's working on a variety of different avenues, I don't believe there's an application there presently where that money is pending actual usage at this time. We are familiar with some other projects that we've been receiving proffer contributions for already up in that area. So Mr. Bishop's pot has been growing with previously approved rezonings in that area.
I know I've been increasingly concerned about longer-term property owners who the only way their land can be developed is to sell it to somebody with deep pockets. And of course, the price is lower when the approvals are not solicited. And I don't know that that should be the governing piece, but I've been trying to factor it into some things in my own mind lately, and it's been a little troubling to me.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, is it within our purview here with this vote to alter the timing of the proffer?
I think it sort of does, but it's you got what it was you'd get was not defined exactly, insofar as you didn't know what your plan was. I mean, somebody's going to do some studies and some work if you figured out what you wanted first. Did I say that correctly?
I think so, sir.
Um,
But in answer to Mr. Lofton's question, it's a proffer, it's voluntary. You could ask the applicant if he was interested in changing it, but you couldn't do it for him.
Well, certainly, that wouldn't put a hardship on anyone. But as we're talking about, if the land changed hands, might not that be the proper time to then ask for the proper?
When the kick-in for the services required, nothing had happened. Maybe they would have some determination that is not as liberal as having cash to do what you need to do as we perceive it. I have to admit that, too. So, anyway. Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Fisher.
Is it a possibility that this surveying and engineering work could be done and then changes come that would render that to be not accurate, have to be redone, or be at such point somebody else?
Question for someone?
Maybe for staff, I guess, and
Staff, please.
maybe the applicant. I'm trying to interpret the first proffer statement, that when the engineering and surveying services be done prior to the approval of first site plan. But is there a potential to have that work done and then it could become partially or totally obsolete by some delay in the development process? I'm struggling with this one. Would it be better at this point with the new proffer versus that the old proffer might not be bulletproof either as far as getting something in
both attempt to move it forward. Clearly, the implementation of any construction improvements out there, the longer they take after the plan would be approved, the greater the likelihood would be for that to happen. But I would feel comfortable that any plans that are prepared are done completely together with the county, with VDOT, and hopefully reflect the best planning effort at the time those plans are put together. So while they may change in the future, I would certainly expect that the plans that are prepared at the request of the county, should that proffer be what moves forward, would be as good as they could be.
I think the long and short of that one is that your query is a yes, could be.
Yeah.
Is that what you were trying to tell me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I sort of feel like we're taking an unknown and turning it into a known, which throws us in then, is the timing okay on the known? Is the amount okay on the known? And that's sort of where I think we are, but speak up if we need to ask more questions before we make a decision. Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, of the applicant, could I ask a question of the applicant?
Sure, he'd come back up.
I guess I'm curious, and forgive me if this question hasn't been asked before, what prompted the request to change the proffer from services to a monetary contribution?
Actually, it's been something that's been in the back of my mind for a while. I've thought about bringing this property back in for a B2 rezoning from B3, and this was going to be the one of the things I would ask to change because, well, quite frankly, if I had went ahead and did the plan back in '06, right now it wouldn't be applicable. It would have been wasted. There's another rezoning, actually two rezonings in that area that are also looking at some type of design. Neither one of them has come before the board yet, but that was another reason I looked at it. I thought, well, now's a good time to go ahead and try and switch this over to a cash proffer. And like I said, it would benefit me in that possibly I could sell it easier because then people would know exactly what the proffer was and what would be required of it. And I thought from the county's perspective, it would be a good deal because, again, you can go get matching funds and double the money, basically.
is, okay, I guess I'm trying to develop the question I need to ask next is, does this, if this isn't approved, well, I guess I'm torn between, the monetary contribution sounds good, but the timing is what is kind of sticking in the back of my mind, and I'm trying to figure out if there's a way that that can be resolved to both benefit.
I understand it. Again, if I was able to come up with that much money, I would, but it really wouldn't happen until
Well, I'm not, yeah, I'm the same.
development could get started.
Yeah, but I was looking if there's a trigger when, like I say, when the land is finally begun to put in use, whether it's sold or whether you decide you're going to develop it, if maybe that would be a more comfortable trigger, I guess, than say the first occupancy permit, although I can't imagine that occupancy permit would be too far after somebody started developing it.
Right. If someone buys it to start development,
They're going to be
Yeah,
in here pretty
you'll-
quick, yeah.
yeah,
Okay, thank you.
yes, sir.
Anybody else have a question for him? We don't run him up again. Okay, thanks, sir. All right, we ready for a motion?
Well, let me try, Mr. Chairman. Again, I think that this change, it delivers the proffer, the attempt to mitigate impact at the point that the impact begins. So on that basis, I would move for approval of application 0113.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Hess. It might have sounded like discussion, but I think we needed to understand the topic before we took the motion, so we are going to go into discussion on the motion now to approve, or, which is what's on the table. Or is there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, so as I understand it, we're looking to modify the proffer to a cash contribution, but the timing still remains at first occupancy permit.
Yes. The motion was to approve what was presented, I believe.
Yes, sir.
Are we ready to vote? Okay, Supervisor Hess.
Aye.
Supervisor Collins.
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher.
Aye.
Supervisor Ewing.
No.
Supervisor DeHaven.
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The motion passes. Next item is a request to schedule a work session for Business Development Advancement Study, BDAS.
We've heard a lot about BDAS. What we're trying to do now is staff's working to fine tune it, and what we want to do is get a work session with you where we can present some scenarios and how it would apply. BDAS is our effort to try to get properties zoned properly for business development, and we think we're getting closer and closer. So we'd like an hour and a half of your time to work through the details.
Talk to us a little bit more about what you mean. What is, are you talking about significant differences between what we last saw and an application of that, or are you talking about an application of what we last saw?
The application of what you last saw, how many properties could be involved, the process that we could go through to get there, try to illustrate how it might work. We felt that the selection process wasn't clear, and we felt the implementation process wasn't clear. So we want to try to illustrate, to demonstrate how it might work.
Let's see what you think about it first before I say anything. Supervisor DeHaven.
Are there also attempts to address issues that were raised at our last discussion?
Certainly, but we're going to try to go through the.
Incorporated into what you'd like to present again?
No, I can't translate that with what I thought you gave me as an answer.
I think what we want to do is we want to be able to demonstrate, well, we want to go through and identify the questions we've heard, provide answers, and then demonstrate how we can address those issues through the process. I think one of the biggest challenges we've heard about is the sale price component. So what we feel is appropriate is to lay out some of the cost, I guess the advantages to working out some kind of an arrangement with the property owners, so we can go out, almost what we just heard now, so we can help a property get rezoned And so the property owner doesn't have to lay out a bunch of cash up front to get transportation involved. Transportation improvements have to be satisfied, and if we can work some kind of arrangement, we can go out and solicit and get state funding to do the transportation improvements.
So a concern or an issue that's reduced to or resolved in process modification, which was not actually ever disclosed, the process, that can't be shown to somebody beforehand, before we call a big meeting?
We can certainly do that if that's your desire. What we were doing at the staff level is we were assembling information. We were gonna share it with our BDAS, and then we would be able to present it to you all. If you'd like, we can, instead of doing a work session, we can certainly just do a Friday mailing, and then ask, if you have questions, then we can call the work session together.
I guess to simplify it, where I was trying to head was, if you said there was some changes, a person could look at it and see if they wanted to learn more, hear more. You said there wasn't any change, but there might be some process modifications, and I'm just trying to see if it's the same product. I kind of want to know before I pass judgment on another meeting on the same thing.
I understand. Well, we heard that there was the price component of the original product is the concern. So what we were trying to do is figure out, okay, how can we advance the project in twofold, if you will, recognizing there's a concern about the price, but recognizing if we can't overcome that aspect, we have another solution for you. Because at the end of the day, our goal is to get property zoned properly and make sure we have infrastructure in the ground. And what we're finding is, of the land use planned properties we have identified for business development, there's probably about 15 properties that are of appropriate size that we need to get zoned properly and get the infrastructure in place so that we can recruit industries to our community. So we want to just be able to demonstrate the advantages if we move the program forward.
Can I hear from some more folks?
Mr. Chairman, this also incorporates the legislation passed by the General Assembly?
Correct.
That's all
We
part of
were
the
trying to
package.
illustrate how it could be applied. That's regarding the rollback tax component.
Mr. Chairman, if you wanted to do a work session, but there are revisions and other things to be presented, I would prefer to see those things prior to such a session. It's always hard to go into a work session and have all this stuff laid out in front of you and then sit there. I can't issue an opinion. Or I wouldn't on the spur of the moment.
I guess I was a little bit more based than that. I was wanting to see if there's no changes
To change.
before to go. I didn't know if I wanted to hear any more about what I already saw. But if somebody worked on it, then I wanted to see what it was, and then I can answer whether I want a work session. But I didn't want to respond to you inappropriately with what you're really asking.
Well, I mean, we can work on putting together a package, mailing it out to you all, and asking and seeking questions. And if there's interest in a work session, we'll come back to you. We didn't want to give you a 20, 30-page document.
We can give guidance that we're interested in a work session or not tonight, or we can get something he sends us and make a decision after we get it. What's your pleasure?
I would be in favor of a work session if we needed it after reading a packet they sent out.
Everybody else speak up.
I agree with the comments.
Is that
That's doable.
productive, doable?
Because we're going to put the information together anyway. The responsibility falls on yourselves to read it and ask questions instead of us presenting it.
If you gave me something that I wanted to have a work session on.
Okay. We'll package it up and get it to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is that as much as we need to give you? And is this the one you had dates out there on?
Right. So if there's no work session, we don't need to worry about it.
Because I know a lot of those dates were conflicts for me. Anyway.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Board liaison reports, are there any?
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I may, Mr. Lawrence, those will actually be mailings. You'll put that in our iPad folder?
I'm sorry.
You'll put that information in our iPad folder instead of sending it out?
Correct. And we'll put it in your iPad folder and we'll send you an email letting you know when it's there.
Thank you.
Board liaison reports? None? All right, citizen comments. This is the portion of the meeting the board sets aside for citizens to address the board on any topic. Is there anyone here who would like to address the board? If so, would you please come forward, give your name, magisterial district, and limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
Mark Berg again from the Back Creek District. I find it rather upsetting that the Board of Supervisors who spoke about changing Para 801 apparently did not carefully read this ordinance change. Noteworthy is the fact that no Board of Supervisors member addressed the point that the entire master development plan approval falls to only 2 people now, not to the Board of Supervisors, nor even to the entire Planning Commission. The new ordinance gives many new arbitrary powers to these 2 people. Clearly, this is going to adversely affect the business community, particularly the developers. Interestingly, this very board recently set up a committee of business leaders to recommend changes to encourage business development. Yet this same board continues to hinder business development in this county with very burdensome ordinances and arbitrary regulations. Shame on this Board of Supervisors.
Board of Supervisors comments. Oh, so I'm sorry. Did any other citizens wish to address the board? Yes, sir. Come forward.
Mr. Chairman, I'm on the Planning Commission, so I did not speak at the ordinance change that the fellow just spoke about. I didn't feel it was right for me to speak at public hearing on that, but I would like to say that as a surveyor engineer, somebody that does rezonings, master plans, site plans, the fewer steps we can take to get things approved, the better. The less I have to come up before you, the better. You know, get pulled into the hot seat and have a political decision. So I appreciate the changes that were made from the development end of it. Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing we'll close the citizen comment portion of the meeting. Board member comments? Supervisor DeHaven.
I have to make just one. I don't understand the concern. The board adopts ordinance designed to produce what is in the community's best interest and what our interpretation of what the community is looking for. And once any development meets the ordinance requirements, it's approved. It doesn't change who reviews anything. It's simply, you meet the ordinance, your application's approved. I don't understand the issue.
Other supervisor comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Fisher.
I didn't want to say anything earlier with the folks who were here with the Laurel Center, but it always gets me when they say there's no impact on the taxpayers of Frederick County. I think a grant that comes from the state of Virginia, it doesn't come out of the sky someplace. It is tax dollars. And I think this was a very worthwhile project. I mean, so I didn't want to say anything at the time because there are social needs that we have to address, whether we like them or not. And I think it was an outstanding project. But there are no free tax dollars, free dollars. And the other issue is this master development plan thing. I guess our ordinance that we cleaned up tonight has been there for I don't know how long, and it's always given the wrong impression who approves what. But it's basically in Virginia, the rezoning process is the only thing we have to approve. And I know the public's always been put at the wrong time that we approve these master development plans. We never have, as long as the development is in compliance with the ordinance of the county and the state code, it's approved. So you really couldn't deny one, or you'd be in the legal hot water, I think, Mr. Williams, up to your ears, wouldn't you? Which would then be very expensive to the taxpayers. So I just have to say that, so thank you.
Other comments? Well, I just have one, and that's that personally I believe Dr. Berg is totally inaccurate. And no amount of elevated voice or pounding on the desk is going to make inaccurate things accurate. That's my personal opinion. Are there any other comments?
Mr. Chairman, move for adjournment.
We have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Supervisor Fisher. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no. Meeting adjourned.